My favorite kind of games are highly technical and demanding games. I love to play fighting games, precision platformers, and the Soulsborne series. With that, I've rarely played turn-based, strategy, or puzzle games. So when The Witness was announced to be coming out for free with Epic Games, I had a similar feeling to Edith Finch being announced. This was going to be my first foray into a genre that I didn't have a lot of exposure to, and hopefully make me a fan of that genre. That didn't happen, but something else did. I am Sherman Says, and today on Epic Deals, the series where I talk about a free game given away by Epic every 2 weeks, we'll be talking about difficulty and what makes a player love or hate a game. I had heard The Witness was incredible from a friend, and I wanted to complete the entire game without looking up a single solution. This was going to be my first time playing and beating a good puzzle game, one that was praised online and created by the indie game king, Jonathan Blow, who I've heard a lot about and even recognized from Indie Game the Movie all the way back in 2014. Just as a little sidebar, if you haven't seen Indie Game the Movie, watch it, it's incredible, and if you enjoy what I do here on this channel, you'll love what they do. For the first hour, the game was great. I was solving puzzles and exploring the island. Things were a little basic, but enjoyable. Then I got to the desert, and the first cognitive roadblock I experienced. I couldn't solve these puzzles. They were all the same, there was no differences between any of them, so I left the area, assuming that I would learn them elsewhere. This was me not understanding the fundamental design ideology that the game was made with. I think this clip best exemplifies it.
I really value that click that happens in your head between you see something and you don't quite understand it, and then suddenly you do understand it. And that is a fundamental part of human existence in the world, is that kind of mental growth, that kind of expanding my sphere of understanding the world around me.
This is a great philosophy, and when things do eventually click, they do so in a brilliant fashion. But Blow recognizes that not every player will be able to make it through and complete this game because of these cognitive roadblocks. Some people just don't have the commitment or the competence to solve these problems. This is where I fall into the spectrum. I have 1 week to complete this game, which is supposed to take 20 plus hours so I can make a video on it. On top of that, I don't have a history of solving puzzles behind me. This led to me not fulfilling the requirements to satisfy enjoying the game and completing it. I like the idea of 2 requirements, competency and commitment, to complete and enjoy a game. So let's examine this. We should probably expand this out from The Witness so that we can apply this idea to almost any game. To do that, we need to define the states involved. First is that the player fulfills both. This, as previously stated, leads to them finishing and enjoying the game as intended by the developer. Next, I would state that given one, a person can finish the game and find some enjoyment from it, but not to the same extent as someone who fits both. If a person is competent but not engaged, the game is disinteresting. Conversely, if someone is engaged but not competent, the game isn't accessible. Finally, if they are both not satisfied, then the player will almost always quit. To further refine our models, let's look at these requirements. Commitment can be defined as the level of interest that a player has. This can be built by narrative, community, or self-improvement, to name a few factors. So this then is the emotional attachment to the video game. If people are highly committed to the game, they are willing to play it no matter what. In an extreme example, think of an esports pro who has lost 10 games in a row.
Yeah, it's just nothing Getting offline, guys, later!
We've had better games.
Now compare that to a first-time player who has lost 5 games in a row. The likelihood of the pro compared to the first-time player to quit or uninstall is much lower. This is because they are highly committed. People who are highly committed are likely to review a game high, recommend it to others, they go to conventions and buy merchandise. It's a powerful effect that can be categorized as a scale from disinterest to adoration. Games can ask different levels of commitment from their players. Certain games require high commitment compared to more casual titles which would require lower. These are games like the Soulsborne series, The Witness, CSGO, Marvel vs. Capcom, or really any esports games. They're games that can frustrate a player. Now for competence. To my knowledge, there are 2 kinds of competence, cognitive and physical. Cognitive competence refers to the ability to overcome those cognitive roadblocks I was talking about earlier, to find inventive solutions to problems and be able to analyze the situation. This is not a direct correlation to intelligence, but rather an ability to think outside of the box. So if cognitive competency is the ability to think about what you want to do, technical competency should then be the ability to perform what you want to. Can you perform the required inputs in the correct order under pressure? Reaction time, inputs per second, aim, and button precision are large factors here. Using these 2 kinds of competence as axes, we can graph where a person would fall and what games they would be competent at. I should also state that this can change with time. Just because someone is at a low level of technical or cognitive competency now doesn't mean that they always will be. So now that we have our full model, let's look back at where the witness is on this scale. As you can see, this game is a medium to high commitment level game with a high cognitive competency and a low technical competency. It is accessible to people who are good at thinking inventively and have a lot of patience or time to commit to the game. Since it's still being talked about, let's look at Sekiro compared to Dark Souls. For those of you who don't know, From Software, the creators of Dark Souls, released a new game, Sekiro, and people aren't happy with it. They're claiming it's not accessible. When looked at through this model, we see that both require high commitment, but I would say Sekiro is higher for the technical requirement, due to its precision timing, movement, and a whole lot of less iframes. So this makes sense as to why people are complaining. They have a high commitment to the game from a love for From Software's games, but don't have the technical requirement yet for the challenge to be fun. This can come with time as people improve and understand the flow of combat, but they might get discouraged and quit. We can do this for any game and draw conclusions from it. But why? Why is it important? Well, for a consumer, it's important to understand where you fall on the competency spectrum and the commitment scale. This lets you have an idea of what kind of games you are suited for or where you can experiment. This will ensure that you don't waste time or money that you spend on a game only to find out it's inaccessible, uninteresting, or both. I will be applying this when making a purchase in the future, and I hope you can too. For developers of games, I think it has a more potent meaning. They can make an active decision to who your audience is and should be. The goal should be to have the lowest level of competency required to hold true to your design pillars. To see this in practice, let's look at Celeste, a game that I've shown a couple times in this video already. It has great features for players who have issues with precise timing and precision movement. These features don't come as a difficulty rating, but rather a secondary mode of play, assist mode. The theme of self-improvement and overcoming mental illness that's present in the story was not something that the developers thought should be gated behind a competency barrier. This is different for The Witness. If the puzzles were to have an easier alternative, they would be more accessible for sure, but the feeling of discovery that Jonathan Blow wants the player to feel would be lost. There are some ways that The Witness makes it more accessible for players of lower competency. To finish the game, you only need roughly 300 of the 500 total puzzles. And thank God, there was a ship puzzle that I tried to complete that when I looked at the solution for, I know I never would have solved it. In conclusion, I believe and propose that there are two requirements to be fulfilled to complete and fully enjoy the experience that the devs have attempted to make. 1. Commitment, the reverence for the game and the willingness to play through it. This is on a scale from disinterest to adoration. 2. Competency, the proficiency of a player to overcome the challenges in a game. This can be represented as a graph, where technical competency is one axis and cognitive competency is the other. Using this model, a player can figure out if they will enjoy a game fully, and designers can reach a wider audience while still adhering to their core design principles. Let me know what you think about this. I drafted a couple versions of this model and through discussion refined it, but it's still a first edition. What do you think could be added, taken away, refined, or changed altogether? I hope that this can start a productive discussion about how we view games that we dislike while other people enjoy them.